You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to thewritingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Writing Community Chat Show for another episode of Season 16. Chris, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's all good. Looking forward to tonight's guest and having a good chat. Obviously, still got that sort of Harrogate hangover, not so much in terms of the alcohol sense, but in terms of, you know, missing being there. Wouldn't it be great to be there now with the sun shining and everything? But yeah, it's been a good week, I suppose. Been doing bits of reading, bits of writing, trying to encourage you to keep up with that crime book and things like that. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, it's amazing what that kind of going to that sort of event does to you, and it's fourth year of doing that, but it's the first time it's really sparked that interest in me to change my genre completely from horror and actually start my own crime fiction novel. And it's gone really well. Like the way I've taken to it and used inspirations from, you know, one of my favorite films, Seven, which I think is one of the most, it's not even underrated, but one of the best crime thrillers that's out there. So it's great. And one of the authors that I interviewed there, Nikki Allen, if you remember that, Chris, that was a great interview with her. She has been a great supporter of it already. She's been asking me to send her my updates of the drafts, and she's been giving me great feedback. And it's just what that networking does at those sorts of events. So yeah, I'm really excited about that and potentially have it ready for next year's Harrogate Crime Writers Festival, but we'll see.
Yeah, you've just got to keep going away at it, mate. That's the thing. You've got the bug. You've got the crime bug now, so just keep chugging away, and eventually it will be ready and done and dusted. But yeah, it's great. Like, I've been reading Michael Connolly. You know, I'm a big fan of his. He's got a new standalone book out this week. And to be honest, I'm about 50 pages in, and I'm not hooked. But your book, again, did hook me. So, you know, clearly doing something right in the crime genre there, mate. So just keep typing away, and then we'll all be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great praise. I'll take that already. I'll put that on the back. You know, back to the Michael Connolly's opener. Yeah. No, honestly, you know, Chris is right. You're talking about Harrogate being a couple of weeks ago, but it's if you live near a writers' festival, even if it's not that well known, I urge you to go and dip your toe, as it were, and not be the classic writer stuck behind a desk kind of person, and get out there and be brave and just go and network. Because, you know, just for the fact that I've got Nikki Allen as almost a beta reader now, who's given me advice and commented me in praising about the work that I've done is huge for an author. So if you can network and link up with local writers and maybe agents or publishers like we have and stuff like that, you know, it's so crucial to developing your craft as an author, if going down that route sort of on the business side is what you want to do. If nothing else, just to help your writing. But yeah, it's fantastic, and urge you to have a look. Get on the internet after you've done this show, or watch this show, or listen back, whatever the case may be, and just have a little search on the internet or what's around. You'd be quite surprised.
Yeah, definitely. I watched a documentary this week about Douglas Adams on Sky, and it was really interesting documentary. It was all about his life and obviously his books and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and stuff. But one of the things that really stood out to me was that he actually hated writing. Like, whenever he got a deadline from a publisher, he would always push it and push it and push it. He'd always just rather go out and see the world, spend time, you know, with friends and traveling and, you know, having new life experiences. And then on one occasion, the publisher actually locked him in his own house and said, no, you need to finish this book. So again, I think the reason why I'm bringing it up is, you know, writing can be difficult at times, but it's easier when you've got a community of people around you that you can bounce ideas off, and you can share sort of practices and processes, and even drafts and pages, and get feedback, because then it's less of an isolating experience, and you don't feel like you're locked in your house. See, there was a way to get into it.
I like that. Well done. Yeah, good way to bring that back. Brilliant. So let's get tonight's guest on, and you can see where she is locked in right now, because it's pretty wonderful. So please give me a hand in giving this guest a nice warm welcome. And as always, get involved in the chat, say hello to each other, network this way also, and send questions throughout. But also at the end, we've a dedicated section for those questions, but we welcome them throughout as well. So tonight's guest has spent years at the heart of the publishing world, running major publicity campaigns and working with some of the biggest names in fiction. During lockdown, she finally turned her own long-held dream into reality and wrote her debut novel. That novel, The Garnett Girls, has gone on to captivate readers with its rich storytelling and unforgettable characters, not to mention becoming a Sunday Times bestseller. Now she is here to talk all about that journey and her latest book, River of Stars, above Chris's head. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me in giving a nice big warm welcome to Georgina Moore. Hello, Georgina.
Hello both of you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's just mentioned, I should ask you how your week's been. We'll get to that. But yeah, you're locked in somewhere right now that sometimes people like myself don't know what that is. Can you explain that? Because I found it fascinating.
Yeah, so I'm in Betsy. She's my boat office. She's like a mini canal boat, and she's moored up by a houseboat that we live on Taggs Island, which is an island in the River Thames near Hampton Court. And basically very much was helpful when writing River of Stars, which is set on a houseboat island in the River Thames.
Yeah, and you can see where that inspiration came from.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to the opening, as we should go. How's your week been? How's things in your world and in terms of your writing world as well?
Yeah, so I've been so busy with River of Stars, writing articles, doing radio. I was even on Women's Hour, which was really exciting because obviously that's quite a big one. And as a book publicist, I kind of know what the big ones are, the ones that really, change the dial on sales and stuff. Yeah. And a lot of people come up to you and go, oh, I heard you on that. So that was exciting. And then I've just had a week in the Isle of Wight where we have a houseboat, which is where I set the Garnett Girls. And it's kind of my happy place. I love the beaches on the Isle of Wight. They're beautiful. So I've had a bit of week off, sort of recovering from, like publication can be quite frantic and it can be quite exhausting as well. Not really in a physical way, but more just kind of because you're sort of putting yourself out there. And when you do it for a new book, you're kind of working out what the themes are and what people are interested in. And it's quite a lot. There's quite a lot going on in your head when you're doing those events and when you're doing interviews, just to kind of really, and then you get it and you start to get feedback from people and you say, oh, you think to yourself, oh, that's the theme there. So it's a really interesting time, but quite tiring. So I've been pleased to have a week off.
Yeah, I bet you have. So being your second novel that you've released now,
yeah,
is it the case that you're now looking ahead all the time and moving on, or are you still taking that time to really appreciate the milestones you're hitting?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's so important to really appreciate what's happening, just those little moments, like seeing the books side by side. I went to a bookshop and they had like the Garnett Girls and just thinking, oh my God, I just had one of those moments. I was like, God, did I do that? Have I actually written two now? The first time you see it, the first time you sign one, the first time you get a real reader, and by that I mean not an author that's given you a quote or someone or your family, but like a reader in a bookshop or a library or wherever who says something about your book or the characters as if they're real people. Those moments, I don't think for me are ever going to get old. So yeah, I really try, because there's a lot that's very anxiety inducing about being published. And obviously there'll be loads of people listening now who are like, oh, you know, but you're so lucky because you're published. And there'll be lots of people who I know, because I meet them all the time, who are aspiring. And of course, incredibly lucky, and me more than anyone, because I had quite a lot of advantages from my long career in publishing. But I think the whole process has made me a much more sympathetic book publicist now, because I see what the other side is like.
Yeah.
And how hard writers have to work and put themselves out there. And I do feel for people. I'm quite an extrovert, as you can probably tell already, because now I'm just rabbiting on. But introverts, I think, who think they're going to have a nice quiet time at their desk, and then they've got someone like me popping up going, could you just write 950 words for, you know, and they're like, oh my God. So it can be quite intimidating at times, putting yourself out all the time.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way you're talking about that. And what popped in my head was Mark Billingham, who was celebrating his 25 years, 25 bestsellers at the Harrogate Festival. And you know, when you're talking about your publicist asking for this bit of work and that bit of work, but then obviously you're trying to build on those novels every year. Do you think someone like in his position, he's found a way to not just be able to write consistently in that sort of way, but also deal with those sorts of requests and edits that come in his direction?
Yeah, I mean, I know, because I look after I have looked after a lot of big brand authors like Mark. I mean, I'm currently working with Lucy Foley, who's amazing and has a huge backlist, and now every single one of her thrillers is in production for big film and TV. So she's really going like that. What happens, I think, is you need some help. I think you definitely need an active publicist who's filtering through event requests. For big authors like Maggie O'Farrell, event requests are coming through sometimes 2-3 a day.
Wow.
I know. So I mean, I always used to laugh about this when I was looking after an author called Andrea Levy, who wrote an amazing novel called Small Island that went on to win the Orange Prize and sold over 1 million copies. And I remember thinking to myself, when the event, I remember thinking, God, you could do an event or festival every day of the week, every day of the year, basically. There is so many across Ireland, and, you know, and so it's extraordinary. So, yes, I think you have to filter, and you have to then, when you get to a certain standing, realize what's worth your time and what isn't. Whereas I think when you begin, my personal advice is to say yes to as much as possible, because you're not going to, you guys know this because you're all about it, but you're not going to build a community without saying yes.
No, absolutely. So I'm really interested, if you go back to, obviously you talked about your massive career in publishing and working in it for so long. Well, can you take us through the moment where you thought, do you know what, I don't just want to work in this industry, I want to be involved, and I want my voice and my story out there. And what was that process like, from that sort of spark moment to, you know, writing the first draft, going through that process? If you could just enlighten us to that little journey, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a strange one, because when I was younger, I was like always scribbling, always writing, always reading. I mean, as you know, unlike my kids who are 13 and 14, who've got screens, I didn't have any of that distracting me. I was reading the whole time, and I always thought I wanted to be a writer. But then I went to work in a bookshop after my English degree, and I realized that there was this whole publicity career, and I was like, I just couldn't believe it. And I kind of worked my way up, and I was working with huge celebrities and looked after Hillary Clinton when she came for her tour. And it wasn't the kind of, and I got promoted to kind of director quite young. And it's not the kind of job where you have any free time. You're just going around the country on these big tours. I was running a team of about 8 people. So it's quite a big job, and it doesn't leave much time to breathe. And also I'm not very good at going home on time. So I was having and it was very social in those days. One day I'm going to write about it, but those early noughties in publishing really was what people say it was. I mean, you know, I was out a lot at the Groucho, and it was very social. So it was fun times. And I didn't really have a pause, because I was having such a good time to think, oh, damn, I haven't written my book. And then I had a moment where I thought, oh, I'll write a girl about town novel, when I was sort of early 30s. And then I was like, well, do I have anything to add to that genre? Am I going to say anything new? So I kind of shelved that. And also, to be honest, I was put off by I really was. I was put off by publishing, seeing how many books there are, seeing how much like a passionate publicist and marketer would put into a debut. And you might have everything lined up and it might feel perfect, the perfect jacket, the perfect sell-in, and then just one thing falls down and it doesn't become that huge word of mouth sensation everyone wants it to be. And it's frankly dispiriting. And you do see how many books, but so I kind of shelved it. And then I think it was really lockdown, because I was approaching 50 and I'd had a couple of people in my life who got ill. And I don't know, you just get to that age and I think you start to feel a bit more mortal.
Yeah.
And I thought, lockdown gave me a lot of my time back, because the job, a book publicist job, like lots of people's jobs, completely changed, because we weren't going anywhere. We weren't taking authors into the BBC or to Cheltenham Literary or to Harrogate or wherever. We were at home and we were trying to do everything virtually and online. And so suddenly I wasn't having late nights. And so I started to get up basically really, really early. I'd had this idea for a story. I'd had this idea in the Isle of Wight, and it was pulling me. And I just thought, gosh, this is the time. I've got the time. And also, I was doing online schooling with my kids, which was horrendous. I never want to do that again. And so I think this bit before they woke up, that was just me, was probably the first time in a long time I'd done anything in my job that was just for me. And so it became this amazing escape. And then I realized how much I was loving it and I was being pulled back to it. And with the idea forming and the characters coming to life, it really wasn't, it just sort of pulled me in, and I didn't find it hard to get that first draft down, I have to say. And I think a lot of people have said that you really feel the Isle of Wight. And I think that's because I was stuck at home wanting to go to the island. I think that longing is in there. And the other thing people say is that there's a lot of parties. And I think that's because I was living vicariously through those Garnett characters with their parties. So, yeah, so I think, and then at the end of it, I just thought, oh my God, I've actually written a book.
Yeah.
And then that was the terrifying part.
Yeah, with the Garnett Girls having done so well, I mean, before you had the publishing insight, obviously, but did you have any expectation that you'd be able to create a book that resonated so well with the readers? I
think that because of what I knew of publishing, and I knew lots of editors were everyone was in for it, and there was a bit of a bun fight over it. I knew at that stage, okay, I've got something that people want. But I, of course, like a lot of people in publishing were saying as well, and my own internal monologue was, well, maybe they just want it because I'm a publicist and I'm a really good publicist. And they think I'm going to sell my own book. So that was kind of the thing that was pulling me back from being optimistic, was my doubt that maybe. But of course, lots of people, I know lots of authors. I have good friendships with lots of authors. I'm very good friends with a lovely author called Patrick Gale, who's a brilliant, brilliant writer, and we're good pals. And he says to me, no, you don't be an idiot, because they're not all in at this, with this money at this level for a book that they don't think will, that they have to be sure it's going to sell, basically. So, but I did have a lot of anxiety around that, and people, and what's the word when you, imposter syndrome.
Yes,
that was really strong in me over the Garnett Girls, but I've kind of worked through that now, and I've had enough, I think, reader feedback of people I know and trust to know that there's something in my writing that appeals to people. But it's what's staggering about writing is how objective it is. It's just, you can get, you're not supposed to go on Goodreads. Everyone told me not to do it. But of course I did. And you'll have like one person going, these characters are the most rich, blah, blah. And then the next person going, I hate these characters. They're so, and you're like, well, how could that be? So I've kind of learned a lot by going through that ups and downs. But I tell you what, to answer your question about, did I know? I could see that the publisher I chose were all in. And from sitting where I have sat so long in publishing, I know that that's half the battle.
Yeah.
So if they're, they've got to be in to convince the world. It's tough out there selling books, really tough.
So have you got advice for someone then you mentioned like aspiring writers, and we have a good few of those that do tune into the show.
Yeah.
If they are looking to get into the publishing world, but they don't know where to start with that, what advice have you got for them for that?
I think I've done quite a few workshops now at festivals and stuff for authors who are either aspiring or out on inquiry, or who are self-publishing. And I think that a couple of things that you were just talking amongst yourselves about your own writing, but basically you have nothing unless you get the words down.
Yeah.
So that is just so, I didn't really realize that. I didn't realize how much work I would do in the drafts. So on River of Stars, I did 4 drafts. And I think I don't know whether you've ever had her on the show. She's great. She's a publicist as well. Becky Hunter. She's also a novelist, but she was great at the beginning stage, because she says that first draft is almost you telling yourself the story.
Yeah.
So it's a private to you. And that's such a nice way of seeing it. As soon as I kind of figured that out, I was like, oh, I don't have to have it perfect. It's just me working it out. Then you can move on to really drafting it and making it pretty and making it, putting the bangs in, getting the rhythm. So I think I would say to anyone, you're not going to have anything unless you get some words down. So just do it. And I know it sounds easier than it is. And I think persevere. Don't think you're too old. I was 50 when I got published. I think that's all a nonsense. I think don't try to publish to publishing trends. Really don't. Because by the time, publishing is so slow that by the time you get there, it could well be over that trend. So just really write what you want to write. That's the main thing, that you love, that you're interested, because I think the reader can tell if you're. Lucy Foley said a brilliant thing to me when I was saying, oh, should I set my 3rd book in Paris? We were talking about how Americans just love Paris. They're obsessed. And I was thinking, I might get an American deal if I set it there, and we would talk strategically. And she said, actually, do you know what? It sounds like you'd much rather set it in Italy or whatever. You just need to do it where you really passionately want to have the setting, because that will make the better book. And that's all that matters, really. So a little bit of strategy, but mostly what's in your heart and passion for it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Go on, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, you mentioned about before you wrote these books that you were thinking about writing a girl about town, and you thought, what can I bring to it?
Yeah.
So I suppose my question is, like, what made you write these stories then? And what did you think, oh, this is what I'm bringing to this genre, and this is
Well, I think that I really felt strongly that in the UK particularly, this family saga genre had fallen out of fashion. And I realized that I was right when people started going about the Garnett Girls early doors, comparing me to dead writers. So like I was compared to Rosamund Pilcher, Maeve Binchy, by the way, all authors I love and revere as masters of the genre. But I thought it was interesting because I think that in America, you're allowed to write family saga without it having this kind of slightly snobby thing about it. So I felt very much I wanted to return to those kind of big, long, deep family sagas of generations, multi-generational, which I think had sort of gone out of fashion. But also I was very, very driven by the need to see women of I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it anyway, of a certain age in fiction, because the women I was seeing over 40 in a lot of fiction I could not recognize. They were not like anyone I knew. They were not allowed to be the main character. They were dowdy. They were old before their time. They didn't represent what I think is modern womanhood now, 40 and above. So Margot in the Garnett Girls was very much my riposte to that, she's like about to turn 60, but she's the main character. She's sexy. She's having sex. She's having sex with a younger man. She loves being the center of attention. She's complicated and difficult. So I think that was also something I wanted to bring to it. So kind of an old genre brought bang up to date, maybe in that sense.
It's really interesting how you mentioned how those women were portrayed over 40 being older than they should be, in that sense of sort of personality. Do you think that would be down to maybe younger authors writing those characters, or just a sort of misconception about what they're like? Because when we hit the age of 40, when you're young, you kind of think 40 is really old.
Yeah.
But when you get there, you think, no, it's not at all.
To be honest,
misrepresentation in that, on that sense.
I think you're exactly right. I think it's when you get a 20 or 30 something writing a 40 or 50-year-old woman just thinking, oh God, they're so old, so they'll be boring. And I think you do get a bit of that. And I think also things have changed, haven't they? You think about Kate Winslet, you think about Nicole Kidman, you think about these parts, you think about Reese Witherspoon, you think about streaming and Netflix and the opportunities now we're getting for a lot of these older women characters to come onto the screen.
Yeah.
That's going to change things massively. Like, I love this. I look after Patricia Cornwell, who's amazing. And finally, on her 29th book, Kay Scarpetta, one of the most brilliant fictional creations, is coming to the screen, and it's going to be Nicole Kidman. But it's taken 29 years, and people like Jodie Foster and all these amazing women have been, you know, put up for that role. And what Patricia says is, if that had been a male character, we would never have waited this long. So, and now it's a woman of a certain age. I hate that expression, but you know what I mean, that's coming to the screen. So I think that things are changing because of Netflix as well, and streaming and opportunities. It's so great because they just want content, don't they? They're looking for,
Anya says, a lot of these women are kick-ass. I appreciate this since I'm almost 46, and there's no way in hell I'm going to lead a boring life.
Love it. Perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll talk about River of Stars in a minute. In about 4 minutes, that's kind of when we kick into that part of the show. But before I do, writing your first book that had a lot of success and a lot of sort of resonation to the readers and all that feedback, talking about how the setting was like a character of itself and all those great comments. What was your mentality going into the release of this book? And did you feel any more pressure? Did you feel like, I've got the first one out there, smashed that at the park, and now I'm excited for the next? How did you feel about that coming out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite nerve-wracking, to be honest. And I think I hadn't realized, because you start to, because I am reading everything. I suppose I feel like I've got leeway too, because I'm in the industry, but maybe it's not a good idea. I'm good pals with Kate Sawyer, who's a brilliant writer, and she doesn't look at anything. And I'm wondering sometimes if that's more sensible, because there is that tendency to want to deliver what your readers want. So with River of Stars, when I'd had the idea for River of Stars way before, because there's this wonderful connection between the islands on the Thames and music, and these hotels that all these islands had, which were amazing music venues. So I'd had the idea a while ago, and I think when I came back to it after Garnett Girls, one of my reasons for doing so was I knew that I could nail the setting. I knew that I could capture, I literally am sitting here in the rowers are going, I've got the cormorant diving, the heron going overhead. I knew I could get the sounds and the flavors and put my love for I've lived here for 16 years. So I could get that love letter to the Thames, and that I knew that the readers I had would love that, because so there is that worry that you're, not playing to order, but you know what I mean. But River of Stars is much more romantic than the Garnett Girls. And I'm just really interested to see how that's going to play out, because actually, weirdly, Garnett Girls is quite unsentimental. And I really wanted to do a second chance romance in River of Stars, older characters meeting again. I love that, because I love the idea of people coming back together with baggage and having to work through, and a bit going back to my theme, which is I love damaged characters who are carrying a lot of emotional damage from the past or inherited stuff, and that they've got to work through. That's what I'm interested in. So I wanted to do that. So it is a bit more romantic. So it's just going to be interesting to see how people respond to that, because maybe that's something they're not expecting from me. But yeah, I think you do think, oh God, is everyone going to say it's second book syndrome?
I think the problem with looking at stuff, and we have to as writers, especially with our first book, second book. But the problem with looking at stuff is we get so fixated on those. I know. Comments. We could have 50, 100, 200 amazing comments.
So true.
Them, and that one negative thing will stick in our minds. And it's such a pain, but we do that for some reason.
It's so true. And I'm doing that at the moment, and I mustn't. And actually, I think that for me, and I don't know whether you two feel like this about people, I have a couple of authors I know really well who've become friends, who work at, and also a couple of my really good friends who are big readers, that I know and trust, and often we agree on what's good and what's not. And I think with River, once I'd had feedback from, a good handful of those that it was strong, and they thought it was strong, and they hadn't been able to put it down or whatever, and the characters were realistic, I sort of thought to myself, do you know what? Now I just have to go forward and understand that some people, it's just going to be the way it was. Some people will love it and some people won't. And I have the blessing, not always a blessing, of living with a psychotherapist. And which you can imagine is not always fun, especially if you're being psychotherapized for free. But he was funny because I, had these 5-star reviews for Garnett. It's my favorite book of the year. And then the opposite, if Margot was my mother, I'd like to kill her, kind of extremes. And he said to me, well, you can't have in life or anything, you can't have that without that. There is that is the way it is. So I've kind of kept that in my mind. And I'm trying to be more measured about it all.
Absolutely.
I like that. I'm going to ask you a question sort of in and around friends and family. Obviously, you work with an awful lot of authors that have become friends.
Yeah.
And some of them are very successful in their own right, obviously.
Yeah.
Does that help your writing process, or does it put an additional pressure on it? Because I could imagine, like, if I was playing football with Lionel Messi, I'd probably feel pretty bad about my footballing skills whilst doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's easy. You just hit it into the top corner or whatever. And he did it look easy, like someone like Lucy Foley would, writing bestsellers really well. Like, I can imagine it'd be quite an interesting dynamic to be involved in, because it's like you've got really good advice from people who are doing really well in the business, obviously resonating with readers, and then at the same time you're writing your own books going, oh, would you read this, or do you can you give advice? And I can just imagine it being a really interesting perspective to be involved in, because there's not many people who have that opportunity that you've got. But I just wanted to know, like, is it advantageous, or does it bring you down at times?
I think you have to, first of all, you have to sort of think about what genre you're writing in. There's no point, if you're writing commercial women's fiction, to compare yourself to Maggie O'Farrell, Patrick Gale, who are writing literary fiction. The two are so different. They're different arts, they're different skills. I personally, from having read a lot of literary fiction and a lot of commercial fiction, I'm not snobby at all in my reading taste at all. People often ask me, oh, do you mind being called family saga? I'm like, no. I just want readers. So I think that once you're settled in your genre, also it really helps to understand. I've seen authors from the beginning of their careers right through, and so much of, as long as you are writing in a way that resonates and with characters that are believable and all those things, so much of success and career is about luck and hard work. Luck, hard work, and just the odd break, the Richard and Judy promotion at just the right moment that sends you stratospheric. Look at Jojo Moyes. I was her publicist on her very first novel. She was published for ages at Hodder and didn't have any commercial success. Still the same writer, still writing beautiful novels. And then she hit on the one, and she moved publisher and hit on the right idea, and then went stratospheric. So I think that really helps me. I have a quite grounded sense of what it takes for a career to really go stratospheric. And it's a combination of factors. Yes, the book has to be great, but also it has to get the right promotions at the right moment and have everything behind it all hitting at once. And that could be, and something could be off. I know, because I've worked on those campaigns. It could be like the title's not quite right, or the jacket image wasn't quite right. It just didn't connect with the consumer, and it's such a shame. And then something else will come along and it goes.
Yeah.
So I think once you understand that makes you a lot more kind of understanding of, yes, of course the book has to be good, But to really become a huge bestseller, you've got to have all these things falling into place.
I got to ask a question very quickly based on that. And as a publicist, have you ever had then in that situation a book that you think deserves the absolute biggest sort of sales ever, and it just hasn't hit, and then and it's kind of fallen back? Does that just stay in the back forever, or is there a way to then reintroduce it and make it try and hit again?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've worked on a lot of those, and I won't name them because it's not fair on the, where you've literally put your heart and soul alongside, often working really closely with your marketing and sales colleagues too, because you really believe in the book or the author, and something hasn't, it could be timing. Also, lots of it can sometimes be fashion, or trends, or what's, being ahead. Some books are ahead of the market, aren't they? They come too early, and later on you think, God, that would have been perfect around now. So I think that can be so dispiriting. And to answer your question about can you go back, yes, definitely. Look at one of my favorite writers, Taylor Jenkins Reid, for example. Now, Taylor Jenkins Reid had quite a few books before. Now, I think there's a brilliant story there, which I don't know all the details of, but I think a book went off. I think it might have been this Evelyn Hugo went off in the States. I think something happened in the States anyway. And then it hadn't worked here to that level at all. And then there was this trickle effect, and then something boomed here. Might have been Malibu Rising. I don't remember the exact order. And then the backlist just started powerhousing up. And that is an example of what happens when someone really takes off. Your whole backlist comes with you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But they did really clever publishing, didn't they? I mean, I just think I really hats off to them. All that special edition of Evelyn Hugo, and they packaged them so beautifully like a set. I think they did really clever brand publishing on her. But yes, I think you may find that at some point something just hits, and that should take your backlist right up.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm going to ask it.
The only problem with that, of course, is if your backlist is at a different publisher. That is an issue.
That's true. Choose your publishers wisely.
Yeah, exactly. And don't run out of. A lot of authors change publishers so many times they run out of publishers.
Yeah, that again, it's a good tip. Don't run out of publishers. I've got a twofold question. So the first one, when we were talking about this, about writers who deserve more credit than they're actually getting, there's somebody in my mind, and again, I'm not going to say who it is. But my first part of the question is, what can writers like that do to help themselves? And then the second part of the question is, how much have you seen promotion change over the course of your career?
Yeah.
Because now, obviously, we've got, writers on TikTok that can overnight, bang, it's like they're at the bestsellers list. They could have a back catalogue of, 5 or 6 books, but it's just one video with one person holding the book, and then it goes up. So I'm just interested to know, one, what can people do if they feel like they're in that position where they've written a few books, they've got their publishing deal, but it's just not taking off for them.
Yeah.
A lot of advice we get is, just keep writing the next book, But that can be quite disheartening. So I wonder what more advice is, and then also what changes have you seen over the time? Yeah.
Well, I mean, basically what you can do is you could invest money in your promotion. If you've got money, you could go to an agency like the one I work at, Midas PR, or any, freelancers, and invest in someone. If you find it difficult, a lot of authors do find it difficult to really activate their social media, you can actually get all that done for you in a really clever and creative way. You could also, invest money in promotion and just decide that this is the campaign that's the most likely, and you want to spend a little extra money and have a dedicated publicist on it, which is hard for in-house publicity teams to do because they're just so overworked. And they just have book after book after book. But if you go to a freelance publicist, that they're being paid this fee and they've got to deliver. And what happens is that you get this kind of, instead of just sending some pitches out, you get the re-pitching and pitching and pitching and the tenacious pitching until you get coverage. But I would only really advise writers to do that when they feel that their publishers are really behind the book, because what publicity can't do is be a silver bullet in isolation. It just doesn't work that way. It will really work if you've got, you know, a lined up campaign with some good marketing and retail. The main thing is retail support, you know, and retail support costs money. This is what people forget. You know, for a Richard and Juicy promotion, you're talking about a lot of money. So you've got to be selected in the first place, but then your publisher's got to be willing to pay for it. So I think, you know, you might choose to spend some money. I think I certainly, if I'd got to that stage where maybe my brand was a little bit tired, maybe, or I felt it needed a refresh, I would definitely think about that if I had some spare money. So that's something that authors can do. And also, I do think that social media is, if you like it and enjoy it, it's worth investing your time in it. There's some brilliant authors who do it really well. Adele Parks, for example, would be an example for me of someone who does it really well. Jill Mansell, lots of people. And they get really good connection with their readers that way, so that readers feel that they can talk to them and reach them, and really good connection with the book blogging community, who are so important for selling books now, because we have so much less space in the magazines and newspapers than we used to. And that answers your question about how promotion has changed. Oh my God, it is so hard. Sometimes I'm just like, why are we even trying to do this? It's just like, and at the moment, nothing is spiking, nothing. I don't know what's going on. I think times are tough out there, you know, cost of living. I think hardbacks are really hard because they went up in price, and people know now that they can just wait for it to be discounted on Kindle, paperback price. So hardbacks are really, really tough. And of course, we've got the Dragon books flooding the market with the special editions. That's the big thing, romantasy at the moment, and it's sort of pushing out a lot of other books. So I'd say promotion's really, really tough. We lost a lot of things we used to have, a lot of space in newspapers. Do you remember that in The Guardian, they used to have the family section that I used to practically every week get a kind of author interview on the front of that. Midweek on Radio 4 with Libby Purvis, we always used to get authors on that program. So slowly we've seen some really good programs for authors just to diminish. So things like podcasts have become really important, book bloggers, community. You were talking about Harrogate earlier, making sure you have the support, you know, your fellow authors, that you get involved in events, that you're seen on social media, reading other authors in your genre, supporting them. So I'm always advise authors that one thing you can really do is create your own community and support the community you're in with the genre you're in.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Happy with that, Chris?
Yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting to see how it's changed, and like,
it really has.
Yeah, when we were at Harrogate, obviously there was an events team there. Like, I didn't realize, there's probably a bit naive of me, but how hard they worked all the time. And you know, chatting to them, I'm like, "Oh, you off now?" And they're like, "No, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this." And these were like relatively young, and they were trying to build their sort of portfolio, and they were constantly like reading things to try and get new authors. They were, you know, helping the authors that they currently had and running campaigns and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, wow, there's a lot involved in that.
It's it's so true. It's I mean, publicists are really like the unsung heroes of publishing. I say this a lot because I think people don't realize how much they're doing. You know, just setting up an events tour is such hard work, especially at the moment where getting people out to events is really hard. Unless it's a big festival like Harrogate or Cheltenham, getting people into bookshops or events is really, really hard. And they're sending authors, you know, so you're part travel agent, part nanny, part like event coordinator, part like you're all these different people. You're the person that the author comes to when you know you've worked really hard to get them a review in the Times, and then they're like, why does this review in the Times say that this book isn't as good as my last one? And you're the person that's got to see them through that, the ups and downs, the emotions. So it's varied skilled. You really have to be quite tough skinned, because you often end up getting the blame So it can be a really tough job, but there are some people that are brilliant at it, like my friend Alison Barrow, who works at Transworld, who works with a lot of the big crime authors like Paula Hawkins, and she's been in the game a while, and she's just really brilliant, and she just makes sure that her authors also get that support from indie bookshops, which is so key.
Yeah, I can see that. The people we were talking to, I could just tell. I was like, you guys would be great lawyers or something like that. It's just there, and like that determination and drive. Like, it's nice to go there because you think, the publishing industry is fine. Like, there's a lot of young people coming into it that are, equally as passionate about books and things like that. Like, it's not going to be a case of, it's going to die out and people stuff. Like, there's a new generation of equally people.
And I always say to authors, like, you get this quite a lot, with male authors of a certain age who are like, oh, why have I got just this girl who's just out of school? And I always say to authors, don't do that. Come on, just for God's sake, don't have that attitude when you meet your publicist. Some of the best publicists are young and hungry and creative and tenacious, and they will do an amazing job because they want to make their name. They want to win awards for their campaigns. And yes, of course, experience is great too. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but that attitude. And I think, one piece of advice I'd have for any, author who's lucky enough to be published in the mainstream with an assigned a publicist, when you go to meet them, remember this person will choose to make that last call. It's their choice. No one's breathing down their neck saying, oh, have you rung so-and-so? Oh, did you just check that so-and-so's got a copy? Oh, do you just want to? They will make that decision, and they'll make that decision very often because they just love your book and they love you. And if you show appreciation, could be the smallest thing, could be bringing them, a donut when you go into the meeting. I thought you might like this. They'll be like, oh wow, I really want to do it, because they then put in the extra effort. And I think that working with them as a team and saying, what can I do to help? What do you want me to do as well? Not just like, what are you going to do for me? I think you can have and I've had some amazing relationships with my authors because it has been like a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The sign of a good conversation is always when we're running late on the segment.
Oh, sorry.
No, not at all. This has been fantastic. But what we want to do is we're going to play a little trailer about the KDP Storyteller Award that is finishing at the end of August. So you have the rest of this month to enter if you want to do so. We're going to play the trailer. And when we come back, we're going to hear all about River of Stars and ask a few questions. And if you've got any questions, please think about that now and send them into the chat, and we will see what they are. And then we'll put them on screen if they're not too crazy, which I'm sure they won't be. So check this advert out. And if you're interested, make some notes or look in the description where you'll find a link to this. So here you go.
Hey writers, what if Hit and Publish could earn you a massive £20,000?
Oh, yeah, imagine. Well, you don't need to imagine, because that's exactly what's on offer with Amazon's Kindle Storyteller Award 2025. This amazing literary prize is back for its 9th year, and it's open to anyone who self-publishes a book via Kindle Direct Publishing in any genre.
Any genre. Whether you've written your first or your 10th novel, it doesn't matter. If it's unpublished and written in English, then you can enter that award with a chance of winning.
Yeah, and it's really easy to enter. So just publish your book through Kindle Direct Publishing between the 1st of May and the 31st of August, and make sure it's enrolled in KDP Select.
Yep, I think you'd be absolutely mad not to, as a £20,000 prize would help any author boost their career massively. And our previous guest and last year's winner, JD Kirk, said that it took his career to the next level after winning that award and taking it home.
Yeah, and it did. These books are everywhere. So in order to enter, head to amazon.co.uk/storyteller to find out more. The Kindle Storyteller Award is open now. So publish, enter, and get your story out there.
Yeah, we'll support you all the way. You know we will do that. So we'll leave you with this. Good luck. The WCCS, together as one, we get it done.
So there you have it. The rest of August is there for you to upload that if you are self-publishing through KDP. All you need to do is put a keyword in. We had a great interview recently that talked all about that. So now we're returning from that advert. Georgina, please let us know or everybody know what Rivers of Stars is all about.
Okay, so River of Stars is inspired by my life on living on a houseboat island, but also by an island upstream from me called Eel Pie Island, which some of your listeners will have heard of. And Eel Pie is in Twickenham, and in the 60s, it had this crumbling hotel on it. And it was a place where these gigs happened with amazing bands like the Rolling Stones and a lot of people before they became famous. And teenagers used to go over the bridge onto the island, get their hands stamped to passport onto Epiland, and they'd hear these amazing bands. So I decided to amalgamate both my experience of a modern day houseboat island and Eel Pie and create Walnut Tree Island, which is the island in River of Stars. And what you have is you have a dual timeline novel, multi-generational, so lots of strong women, different ages. And you have 1964, you have Mary going over onto Walnut Tree Island to hear the bands. She's just a teenager, and she falls, as you do, in love with a rock star called Ozzy Jones, and sadly is left with a baby and a broken heart. And then in the modern day, it's, you know, Mary is now 70 and she's living on Walnut Tree with her granddaughter Jo, who's a kind of feisty aging party girl who doesn't want to settle down, whose sort of life is slightly passing her by. She's 40, but she's got this close-knit community where everyone knows each other, artists, bohemian community on Walnut Tree. And into that environment comes Oliver Greenwood, who's inherited the island from his father. And all the community are worried that he's going to sell it to a developer. This is a way of life that actually is on the Thames very often under threat because, you know, moorings, illegal moorings from canal boats and so on. Anyway, Jo leads the community up against him. But then the reader discovers that Oliver and Jo may well, when they were teenagers on Walnut Tree Island, have had a romance. ...
Yeah, someone, you know, this story and your previous, where there's a lot of family involved, and you've mentioned throughout the interview strong female characters. How much of that has been inspired by sort of real life in your life and maybe families that you've encountered along the way?
So, yeah, I get asked this a lot, you know, who people were intrigued with the Garnett Girls. Even my friends were like, well, which one are you? Or are you in all of them? I think with my female characters, what I tend to do is use a touchstone of myself as a starting point of me at different points in my life, because that really gives me an authentic way in. And then they do that thing that I always used to listen to authors say, and I didn't really believe them, that the characters grow and become their own people. That does happen with my characters. So I suppose Jo is very much what I was fearing I would be. I settled down quite late to have kids. I was 37 when I settled down. I'd been having the wild old times before that, and had my children at 38, 39. So I was very close to being that person that might miss out on all that. So I kind of understand Jo, and I know a lot of my generation were at that point, and I was hoping that people would be really able to identify with that in Jo. That sort of burying your head in the sand, not really thinking, oh, it's okay, I've got plenty of time, that kind of attitude. So that's where that comes from. Mary is nothing like me, and as I've been talking about the book and been at events, she's very graceful, Mary. She's very giving. She's very much the focus of the community. She's not good at putting herself first, and she's very selfless, and she's sort of the queen of the island, really. But I think as I've been talking about it, I've realized that she's probably the most close to my mother. And I I hadn't even realized until I was started talking about the book. I was like, oh my God, it's like I'm describing my mother. So I think that might be an inspiration there. And the granddaughter relationship, I really wanted to do, because I'd done mothers and daughters in Garnett Girls. And I had a very close relationship with my grandmother, which really helped me in my teenage years when my mother and I were clashing really badly. And my grandmother always just seemed like someone who got me and was kind of my soulmate. So I think a lot of people have that. It's just that one remove that makes it easier. So that was where that came from. So there's all different things mixed in there.
So did you start the writing process with all these characters in place, or did you have, say, one female lead character that then blossomed these other characters along the way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really, for me, Jo was the one I was thinking of, and this second chance romance. I didn't actually want to write a dual timeline novel. I was a bit like, oh, historical. Oh, gosh, can I do that? Oh, no. Can I really? I was really nervous as well about capturing the atmosphere of Eel Pie, because there are people alive now who danced on that sprung floor in that. And I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to do it justice. I read a lot. I went there a lot, because you can go over onto the island during these open artist studios. So I got a real sense of it. It's a very eccentric, amazing place. But I was worried about that. But it was my editor, really, who just kept saying, I just wanted a few flashbacks from the past, the way I'd done in the Garnett Girls. But my editor, who's very clever, kept saying, I really think we need more of this. I really think. And so I kept giving her more. And I started thinking, hang on a minute. This is becoming a dual timeline novel. And I was also thinking, hang on a minute, this is way too long, because they're really strict about, they never want things to be too long, cost of paper and people's attention spans, and I was thinking, this is too long. And sure enough, she said, right, you've completely nailed it, you've got the character development, you've got the story, now I want you to cut 10,000 words. And I was like, oh my God, because that's quite a tall order, having to cut 10,000 words. But yeah, so she really pulled that out. So I started with Jo, and Mary is something that came really out of as I explored that time.
We've got two questions in here, or one is a statement that kind of relates to what you're talking about, so I'll put them up now. Anya says, a lot of these women are, oh no, we said that earlier. Says, I love dual timeline novels, and I'm writing a crime/historical fantasy one now, and I'm going to buy the book. And what leads into that is, Sarah says, was there a reason for using the 60s in the book?
Well, because it was the 60s on Eel Pie Island. Yeah, that's why. I mean, I read, there's some fantastic books about that time. And of course, if you talk about someone who was 16 in the 60s, they're still alive now, which is, some of those considerations are important when you're writing, when you want to write a dual timeline, which has a present aspect. You have to kind of work all that out quite carefully. Is this realistic? Can I have Mary in the 60s and Mary now? But yes, the 60s was the time on Eel Pie. And also what's fascinating about that time is it was really when this idea of the teenager was discovered. Before that, there wasn't this sense of the teenager. You left school, you had a job, you got married. The teenagedom all comes around that. And there's a lot of sex and marijuana and, music. And so it's exciting to write about. And, I do love a bit of glamour and danger in my writing. So it really just appealed to me.
So with Anya's comment there, if I can find it again, about writing, she's writing a crime/historical fantasy novel and loving dual timelines. I'm assuming she might be suggesting she wants to write that kind of timeline thing. What advice have you got about writing a dual timeline?
I think it's quite hard, because I found it quite hard. You've got to get the beats right. So what do you reveal in the past that you then pick up? And when do you pick it up again in the present? So I didn't do anything as ridiculous as some people do. I know people who write thrillers have to do like spreadsheets and, I didn't do that so much. And I think quite a lot of what I do is quite instinctive. And I think that's basically from years and years and years of reading, and the fact that, for work, I read, 2 or 3 books a week. So I think a lot of what I do is quite instinctive. So it's really hard to explain, but I did go through and mark down against each chapter what I was revealing, so that I got it completely right. And the best thing anyone can say to me now is, I had a review the other day that said that they thought the past present interweaving was like perfect. And I was like, oh, thank God, because you do work at that quite hard to make it. It's got to look, this is the thing about commercial fiction that people forget, and which is why it's such a skill, is it's got to look effortless. So people don't know. Whereas with a lot of literary fiction, what you're admiring is the words and it's very obvious. But with commercial fiction, it's got to not be obvious. That interweaving and passing, and it's really hard to do. I mean, you have to sit down and really think about it and get it right, and get those beats of reveal right. But yeah, that's so. Hopefully, I have done that.
Yeah, good points. That's how I write too, on instinct. I'm still working on the effortless though. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you find that advice helpful.
I think it's not always helpful to people to say it's instinctive. So what I would just say to add to that, so people don't think it's annoying advice, is if you're not finding that instinctive sense of rhythm, you've got to go and read more.
Yeah.
And people who say, oh, well, you can't read when you're right. Yes, you can. You can. You should be reading all the time. And I think most writers do think that. And it will help you with your... And also what Maggie O'Farrell always says as well is, go, if there's someone you admire and they're doing something you admire, go and take it apart.
Yes.
Go and pull it apart. Go and look at how they've done this mysterious thing, and you'll realize it's not that mysterious. It just looks effortless, but it's not. It's like proper mechanics are there. Go and pull it out and then do it yourself.
Yeah, Chris, that something you mentioned a little while back on the show about pulling a book apart. Was that something you were doing, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, when I did the master's degree, like, it was part of the process of pulling books apart. And for me, it ruined reading for quite a while. I was like, oh, I can see how everything's done. I don't really like it. But
there you go.
Yeah, enough time passed. But yeah, I agree with that advice. Obviously, I'm not going to disagree with
No, she's brilliant. And also, if you're working on a genre as well, and I mean, if with genre, you have quite specific rules, about, reveals and tension and, red herrings and all those tactics. So, you've really got to be reading the masters of that to see how they, as you say, make it look like it's not there, but it is.
So I need to ask now, we've just gone over the hour. Are you okay for 5 minutes more or so?
Yes, I'm fine.
Excellent. So I was going to ask then, if Margot was, you mentioned earlier how, I've got blurry again, of how people have got their books optioned and then adapted into TV shows or movies. If Margot was, if your River of Stars was adapted, have you got a casting? Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, I have with Margot. That's come up quite a lot for the Garnett Girls, because it nearly got bought, and then because it was lockdown, the company that was going to buy it went under, which was really disappointing. But one just has to keep hoping. But yeah, I thought Margot. I'm now thinking that maybe neither of you watch Bridgerton, but in Bridgerton, the mum of the really annoying sisters that's got dark hair and quite low cut. Polly, she's called Polly Williams. Anyway, she'd make a great Margot. But people love coming to me and saying, oh, I tell you who should be Margot is, and they've always got good ideas. Joe, you need a redhead. You need a 40-something redhead. I can't think of one right now.
Isla Fisher, or is she too short? She's quite short.
She'd be good, actually, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
She'd be good, Isla Fisher. Yeah, well, it'd be a nice problem to have, though, coming up with something, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think it would be really interesting for an author to go through that journey, and they might not have any input at all in that sense, but just to be part of it or on the sidelines of production would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I'd love Leo Woodall to play Oliver, but I fear he's too young. Oliver's 40, so.
Oh, they can make them look older.
True.
Anya says, I watched Bridgerton and love that character, and the actress also played Attia in Rome.
Yeah, there you go. Anya knows.
Yeah, I was going to throw in a quick question of if you could be the publicist for anyone, any one book, whether that be an author that's alive or dead, which book would you want to have been the publicist on? And if you could write with somebody and do a dual narrative book with somebody, again, author, live or dead, who would you write with?
I mean, I really love the campaign that was done recently for the List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey. That was done by a friend of mine, Charlotte Bush. I thought they did an amazing job, and that's been a huge bestseller. And also it was just really authentic the way they used Jenny, the author, and Jenny was so brilliant and hardworking, and it really engaged bookshops and readers, and I thought it was brilliant. I think the campaign I'm most proud of myself is Hamnet. I did the publicity campaign for Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I won a couple of awards for that campaign. That was really hard because we had to go completely online and virtual, and it was lockdown, and I had to cancel everything. So, but I always remember when you just got the sense that she wrote this piece for The Guardian comparing the plague in Hamlet to what we were going through in COVID, and I just suddenly got that tingling feeling of knowing that something was building to make it the book that was about loss and the time and that what we were all going through, and I just knew it was going to hit. We'd done it, and that's always a great feeling where you just feel something is about to go boom. So I love doing that. If I could work with someone, absolutely. I've been so lucky to be have comparisons made to Rosamund Pilcher, who wrote The Shell Seekers. I mean, she was just such a master. That book is one of so many people's ultimate comfort read because she just captures the beach and the family and the house and all the elements I'm trying to do. So I love her. But I think probably the author I would have loved to work with, because she would have been fascinating and she was such a character, was Mary Wesley. She started writing when she was 70. She wrote The Chamomile Lawn, which was a big BBC documentary, a big BBC series. And she was just quite naughty and really fun, and wrote these books late in life, and her women are older women who are really out there enjoying their lives, and I feel like we would have had a fun time working together, and she'd have a lot of stories.
Nice.
Amazing. Right, Chris, let's get our staple questions in because we're over time and I don't want to keep you later than you need to be, although we're thoroughly enjoying this. If you could take any character from the world of fiction, whether that be a TV show, a movie or a book, and put that character in, say, River of Stars or a future novel, what character would you choose?
I think one of the characters I'm most obsessed with is Anne of Green Gables. It's kind of where it all began for me, and there's an element of that red-headedness, imagination, and the setting. You know, people say, why are you obsessed with islands? Well, I always go back to Prince Edward Island, you know, this amazing Canadian island that is explored in Anne of Green Gables, the setting of that, and Anne's imagination and the way she brings that island to life for the reader, and the way she's so frustrating and irritating at times. You're just like, Anne, will you stop being so? But at the same time, you're with her. That's just so clever, and that's what I want to do with my characters. So her, I think, Anne of Green Gables.
Nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, obviously we've kept you long enough anyway, so I'm just going to ask you the sort of final question of sort of where can people stalk you on social media and follow everything that you do in terms of writing and things like that?
So I used to be like really, really busy and active on X when it was Twitter. But as we all know, that has become a nightmare. Yes. I know there's a lot of the book Twitter is still on there, trying to fight a way through. So you can find me on there still at Publicity Books. But I think where I'm putting all my effort now as an author really is on Instagram at Georgina Moore Author. And I do a lot on there and link it to my Facebook. So yes, Instagram's probably the best place.
Brilliant. Yeah, Instagram. I completely agree with X, by the way. We put a lot of our eggs in that basket to start the show.
I know.
Yeah,
it's so hard. I had like 30,000 followers just from being a book publicist and reading a lot and putting a lot on there, and then to become an author and find that had all gone. And I'm on Blue Sky, but no one seems to be doing anything on Blue Sky. So,
Substack has been a new favorite of ours. However, it does seem to have a lot of repetitive sort of posts, but recently a lot of ours have picked up. So it's a bit of both on there. I think what's beneficial about that is a bit of advice for someone who might be watching and listening about this. When you create your Substack and people follow you, subscribe, or both, it goes to an email campaign thing. So it builds up your subscriber list. So if that was to collapse or fumble, whatever the case may be, you could still export that email subscriber list, and then you'd still have contact with those. So all the people who disappeared on Twitter, they might have just gone off social media. And they've gone. But if you've got the email list, then potentially...
Oh, that's really helpful. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that amazing advice.
You're very welcome. Okay, brilliant. All I want to say then, again, sorry for keeping you 10 minutes later. I'm sure everyone enjoyed that. But thank you so much, Georgina. Absolutely inspiring, insightful conversation. And I hope that, you keep on writing and you don't get too tied up in between the two, both the professional worlds, and you keep your work coming out. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Brilliant. Everybody, again, consider, if you are going to self-publish, looking at that KDP advert on the link in the description, because it is just a keyword you need to put in there. And if you watch our interview with JD Kirk and our recent one, Chris, do you remember? It completely slipped my mind who it was we interviewed about it the other day. I've seen Bobby something. We'll post about it.
Names, if you can't remember it. We just say
in
no.
the description. But also in the description, you'll find links to our Substack and those great things as well. Please like the video, leave a comment and subscribe. But also we'll post Georgina's information in there as well. So please do follow her and pick up River of Stars today. And I'm assuming it's in all local bookshops as well, Georgina?
It is, yes. All good bookshops.
So there you go. The last thing to say is have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe. And if you're writing, keep at it. And if you need help or advice, we're here for you. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.